Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. I was adjusting the levels, everybody. I was deep into it. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Today is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. And tonight, what is consciousness? That's right. We're going to do a deep dive into this subject tonight. And certainly one of the most important questions facing humanity is just that. What is consciousness? And it spans out into so many different directions off of that. Life after death and your soul and emotions and all of that. So tonight we're going to discuss all of that. And I think it's pretty safe to say that there's going to be some things tonight that you probably haven't thought of. And I think about this a lot. I interview quite a few people about this subject. I think it's a very important one. But I also read and I do a lot of research into this topic. And I think it is very, very important. And one of the things that drives me as I have, taken this journey, UFOs and lost history and, conspiracies of different sorts. Everything leads me back into two different directions, consciousness and science. And it just pushes me, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I am curious, right? And I'm asking myself questions all the time. And because I am searching for answers, I'm forced to go into the world of science, into deep subjects that I don't understand. I haven't gone to college for physics. I struggled with algebra and geometry in school, and math wasn't the strongest thing that I dealt with. It was bad news. But as an adult, I don't have a choice. And doing this research, and it keeps pushing me back into these books and different researchers out there, and physicists and scientists and astronomers and biologists and, discussing chemistry and elements and particles and atoms and protons and electrons and neutrons and quarks and what binds everything together. It is fun. It's fun for me. So what have I learned, and how have I tried to put all of this together? Well, tonight we're going to get into that. And I can assure you that everything that I am going to discuss tonight, and it is going to be deep on many, many levels. This is what I've learned. I have studied this, and these are the answers. Okay, for me. So when we come to the, I'm going to use the word fundamental many times tonight. The fundamental question of what is consciousness? How many times have I asked a guest that? It's been hundreds of times. I've done thousands of interviews, and I've gotten a different answer every single time. And sometimes they blend together a little bit and they overlap. But there's a reason why nobody knows for sure. Okay. And we're going to discuss all of that. But it is the question, right? So if we go back to, 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, and maybe even before man was speaking, right? But they were thinking and looking to the stars, right? And wondering what was going on up there. That's consciousness. That's the mind. That's the mind working. And when a loved one, a child, a family member dies 10,000 years ago, were you thinking about death? Probably. And thinking that's consciousness. That's the mind right there. We've always had the ability to do that. And the question that has been out there since the dawn of everything is, what is going on? Why are we here? What's the meaning of everything? Where do we go after our bodies shut down? We're going to talk about all of that tonight. So that question, what is consciousness? I'm going to start here, okay? And we need to get a foundation. So here is the start of it. Here is the foundation, because it is said over and over again that particles, elements, right? Hydrogen, carbon, helium, gases are the same throughout the universe. Okay? It seems, again, fundamental, and it is very easy to accept and understand if we look at things that way, that, something here, is it going to be the same somewhere else, right? So if this is the case, and if we can accept that, then I guess a rock or a chunk of gold would be the same whether it's here on Earth or elsewhere in the vastness of space. There's another part to this, that gold wasn't created here on Earth, right? It's not something that is created. It was brought here from somewhere else. All of the gold on Earth was brought here from space rocks. Yeah, that's right. So think about that. So I guess gold is the same everywhere. Started somewhere. It just wasn't created here. So if it's the same everywhere, and if we all agree with this, and most of us, if not all of us, do, how are each and every human being right now unique? Now think about that for a second. If all particles are the same, right? And if everything is the same, how is it that we are all different? Different minds. We're different people, right? How are we all unique? With our own minds, our own dreams, our own laughter, and of course, our own personalities. Now, if consciousness exists in some degree inside of all particles, which is what a lot of scientists say today, and physicists, right? Well, then, if all particles are the same, and if there's consciousness in every single particle, shouldn't we all walk, talk, and think the same? But we don't. Between our ears, we have a mass of gray, right? We have this big lump of gray, this goo. Weighs about 3 pounds. With 90 billion neurons and 100 trillion connections, right? And sometime over the last 200 million years or so, something happened, something changed. The particles that make up our brain decided to think. They decided to feel. They decided to laugh and cry. They decided to imagine, right? and look to the heavens and beyond. Human imagination allowed for untold amounts of invention, and it continues. Achievements that only happened with our species. Talking about food and clothing and communication and transportation, and of course, the possible self-destruction of us all. All of this is possible because of consciousness. And it's the one thing that the hard sciences just don't understand. We've only had real science as we know it today. We've only had it for about 300 years. Isaac Newton died in 1727. And that's when things started to change. And I'll get back to that. But today, science, and I'm talking about mathematicians and physicists and the big brainiacs out there, they virtually never discuss consciousness because they can't or won't. They can't apply math to it. They can't measure it. They can't see it or feel it. They know it's real, but to discuss it means that, they're dipping their toes into something spiritual, right? Into something magical. And that isn't science. So they're not going to do it. This wasn't the case before Isaac Newton. He was a key figure in the philosophical revolution known as the Enlightenment. And I get it. We know that he was a physicist. We talk about that a lot. We know that he was a mathematician and his groundbreaking math and books and so forth. And we know he was one of the greatest scientists of all time. Gravity, right? Okay. Most of the credit goes to Isaac for what little we know about gravity. And in fact, our satellites and space probes that are sent out to space are sent out with his math. And that math was written over 300 years ago, and it stands today. But Isaac was also a theologian. He was a religious man. He was also a philosopher. And he was an alchemist. He was a devout but unorthodox Christian who privately rejected the doctrine of the Trinity, right? He refused to take the holy orders in the Church of England, and he dedicated most of his time to the study of alchemy and the Bible. Everybody knows Newton, the scientist, but he also spent half of his life studying alchemy, and he spent half of his life looking for the philosopher's stone. Now, would a physicist today do this or talk about this or write about this? And the religious aspect to this as well and studying the Bible? Well, the answer is no. Just wouldn't happen. But throughout history, and I'm talking about deep, deep history, this was the case with all scientists. Because scientists were also philosophers. Scientists were also spiritual. And they pondered consciousness. Today, things may be starting to change. And I think that some physicists in the hard sciences are beginning to be more open when talking about the mind. They don't have much of a choice. But to be totally honest here, you would have to listen to those brainiacs who are in the twilight of their careers, right? They're at the end when they're thinking about their own mortality and also maybe retirement and out of their careers where it is more okay for them to talk about the greatest fringe topic of them all. And I'm not talking about UFOs or Atlantis. I'm talking about consciousness. Those are the physicists that think about it and talk about it and wonder about it and are okay with expressing it. You see, for the last 300 years, the sciences have only dealt with measurement or attempting to measure with only things that are part of reality. And at least to them, the scientist, the reality of what is real to them, and for them, consciousness doesn't meet that criteria, right? They can't measure it. They can't see it. They can't feel it. So therefore, but the very thing that every scientist and human, everything that they have in common is the ability to think, to imagine. Every scientist knows this, and therefore, there is no denying that consciousness exists. And you may get them to say that. But they'll also say that once the body shuts down, man, what happens to all of that thought? The memories, the feelings, the personality. Does it just die with the body? What happens to your soul? What happens to your emotions? Is it something that continues after the particles that make up your mechanical body stop functioning? That's what they think. Our mind is what gives us this reality. The reality around us, what we see, what we feel, what we taste, what we smell, this reality around us. It's our mind that gives us that. I mean, does a rock, does this Allen wrench right here, does this Allen wrench see the world as we do? Of course it doesn't. But confront a physicist with this very important point, and all you'll get in return, is a strange look. Oh, come on, man. And then they're going to go back to their lab and they're going to crunch some numbers and they're going to do all of that while thinking, right? Thinking about whatever. But they'll never give you a scientific explanation to what consciousness is. They know it's real. They know they think. They know they ponder. But they're never going to explain it to you. Here's the problem. To say that the mind may be something that is outside of the physical is never going to happen. That is where the line in the sand is drawn. They know that they can't touch it. They can't feel it. They can't measure it. So does it exist inside of the body or does it exist outside of the physical? And this is the big dilemma. And for them to consider that, just to consider that it could be something outside of the physical, is something that they're never going to talk about. Or will they? See, for them, consciousness, and I say them, right? To them, the scientists, the academics, the brainiacs, the physicists, the mathematicians, right? To them, consciousness has to be a part of chemistry. It has to be a part of atoms and particles. That's it. And to do this, to show that this is the case, is one of the most insane challenges. And they just can't do it. So that's the paradox that we have. Is consciousness something that exists separate from the physical, outside, or if it is part of the physical, how do you prove it? They can't. Now, I talked about Isaac Newton earlier, and Newton, he gave us the basics for math and for calculus and astronomy, gravity, right? Those tools paved the way for Einstein in the last 100 years. And what Newton didn't know I'm going to talk about this more. What Newton did know is what we know today, the very small, right? Now, he saw things and he measured things and he was able to express things, and algorithms and math that, like I said, stand to this day. There's the mechanical side of physics. He just gave it to us, and he gave us those tools. And Einstein took that and we got relativity out of it, right? But we've expanded to the very large and the very small. And when I say the very large, we are looking at the edges now of the observable universe. We are able to see these things and talk about them and think about them, right? All the way down to the absolute very, very small. And there may be smaller than the small. And we are able to do this and to measure this, right? But the greatest discovery, still waiting from Newton's work, is how the mind can develop from the gathering of trillions and trillions of particles. How does that happen? There's a lot of particles in this Allen wrench. Is it conscious? How is it that we do? So it's at this point that I have to ask the question, how is it that I can wonder about this stuff? Me, I'm just a guy, right? I'm just a nobody. How is it that I can think about this and wonder about it? What makes me different from, say, a dog, a cat, a monkey, a fish? You see, there is a fundamental limit to how much an animal can learn. There's a fundamental limit to how much knowledge they can handle. And once they do, what do they do with it? Now, I get it. A dog can feel sad. A dog can be happy. We see that. But do they ponder life after death, or how many galaxies are in the observable universe? Probably not. They might, but probably not. We, as humans, have constantly raised the bar on our fundamental limit of knowledge. You have to look at it this way. And we raise it all the time. Because if you turn back the clocks to, say, 100,000 years ago, could Homo sapiens sapiens, same brain sitting in between those ears, inside of that skull, same brain, could Homo sapiens sapien understand quantum anything? There was just a fundamental limit to what they can understand. But we just kicked it up a notch and kicked it up a notch and kicked it up a notch. Now, before you say, and I know at this point, I know what some of you are thinking, that, well, wait, Jimmy, that, 100,000 years ago, there may have been another advanced civilization running around our planet before us, and they were really smart and technically advanced. Well, okay, that's fine. But let's save that conversation for another time. Because my point is, we, and this is unique to every other species living right now, we, us, Homo sapiens sapien, constantly get smarter. Yeah, we just don't stop. If you think about each stage, if you just look back, and the last 100 years is just astounding. And I can use that as an example. Just that, where at the turn of the century, 1900, right? 1900, covered wagons, horses. Look at the pictures of Manhattan in New York. Look at the streets of New York, horses, 100 years ago, right? Lifting it up, cars, right? 1903, Kitty Hawk, airplanes, flying, right? Lifting it up. A couple of decades later, we went from Kitty Hawk to jet aircraft, jets, the atomic bomb, telephones, stereos, audio, television, radio. In 50 years. Elevating. We just get smarter and smarter. Everything that we think about, we take that and imagine a step further, and then we go and do it. There isn't another species on this planet that has done that. That is consciousness. That is the mind. That is imagination. Storytelling. Newton taught us about gravity. The apple falling from the tree, right? We all know that story. But he didn't have any idea about electrons, about photons and protons. Right? He didn't. Or how gravity keeps everything together. But today, because we've elevated our fundamental limit to knowledge, today, it's the basics of the basic. And as we learn, and the word quantum, it's applied to everything today. But as we learn, we raise the bar one more notch of our fundamental limit to knowledge. But we still don't know what consciousness is. Think about it. Now, as we try to figure this out, and we move further down the road in pursuit of AI or artificial intelligence, we're starting to fully understand how complex our brain is. And of course, what runs it? The mind. There are a few places on this earth right now. There are laboratories building monstrous computer systems that take up entire buildings, trying to match those 90 billion neurons in our brain, right? And those, trillion connections. And here's the thing with that. It was thought that if we did that, if we completed a computer with those 90 billion neurons in it simulated, that we would have the ability to do what the brain does. And we got there a few times. We built it. Didn't work. We are building bigger and faster computers. We're writing very advanced code. But no matter how big, with thousands of interconnected servers, billions and billions of transistors, running the most complex instructions, none of it compares to the human brain. That's it. None of it compares. And none of it compares to the consciousness running around inside of that brain. It's incredible. The roadblocks. We are finding out that the human brain is absolutely the most amazing, advanced thing in the universe. That's it. It's the peak. And this is where science has to finally consider what thought and emotion really is. Because as they are writing the software, they're building the computers, it's always the same situation. It's good. It's fast. But it's not conscious. Right? It doesn't make decisions. It's not thinking right. It's not storytelling. It's not imagining. It's not consciousness. We can't get there. Now, I want you to think about some of the things that we're doing today in our pursuit of consciousness in the brain. because we can use an MRI to look inside of our heads. And look right there. Living color. Make a video of it. Right? We can punch a probe deep inside our brains, and we can monitor activity and electromagnetic waveforms and stuff lighting up, and we're happy and this lights up, we're thinking and this lights up, we're sad and this lights up, we're scared and something else. We see all of that. And when a technician, when a scientist, when a doctor sees all of that, what are they thinking? Right? We do all of this to study what is going on during all of these processes. When thought is happening, when emotions are happening, when feelings are happening, when imagination is going on, we can see the brain activity, but all of that is just mechanical data. Right? But when you're looking at the colors, you're looking at the movie playing out, you're looking at the video, you're seeing all of this. In the end, we don't understand, how and why we laugh or why we think about life on Mars. But it's because of these observations. You can't help it if you're a doctor or if you're a scientist watching this, that the time is right now for science to finally get serious about studying consciousness. They know something is going on very close, right? Very close. They know there is so much study going on about the brain and what consciousness is and how we make decisions, how we think, how we laugh, how we cry, right? But why do we do it? How do we do it? So with all of this, and let's say that science is ready, right? Science is ready. Will there? Now, we can talk about Google. We can talk about Alphabet. We can talk about the different Lawrence Livermore. We can talk about Los Alamos. We can talk about these Sandia National Labs. We can talk about DARPA. We can talk about Stanford and Harvard. Right? And these medical institutions that are trying to tackle this. So let's say they get serious and things are going to pop off. That AI is here and AGI and will there be software written that can simulate consciousness? Let's stop right there for a second. Because that is what people are thinking. That is the next stage. But I will say this. Maybe someday. But first, the math will have to be worked out. And right now, nobody, and I mean nobody, right now, is focused on that. How do you write an algorithm that will represent consciousness? What string of numbers and letters and symbols is going to be put together in a set of parentheses that is going to represent consciousness? Can't be done. Is it impossible? Well, there may be some scientists out there thinking and dreaming about the day that some nice, neat mind equation is running on a computer, right? That has the ability to predict, to imagine, right? And to answer questions, ask questions. But right now, there is no way to start running numbers. There's no place to start. Let me explain. Have you ever known someone who would just change thoughts? You ever have a friend that would do that? Maybe you know somebody now. Maybe you're married to somebody that can't stay focused. In their own mind, they're focused. You are trying to follow, right? And it's always rapid fire. and they string these thoughts together. They just string them along. And they could be in one moment talking about the weather. Oh man, it rained last night. Oh, it's cold outside right now. Oh, it's going to be sunny tomorrow. And then, have you seen my new shoes? Seen the new shoes that I just got? They're not that comfortable, and I don't like the laces, and my socks feel weird inside of them. And then last night we had chicken for dinner. I didn't want chicken for dinner, and I wanted meatloaf, and so but I had the chicken because this weekend I have to rake the leaves in the yard, and normally I have 12 bags of leaves in the fall, and I think I'm going to have 14 bags of leaves this year. It's going to be pretty intense. We'd had a lot of leaves, and you're just like, dude, right? And they do all of that while working at their desk in a cubicle in a 5-minute period, and you hear this, and that's just a small fraction of the day. Right. And you've got to hear the same story over and over again. And you got to hear about their childhood and this and that, sports, whatever it is. But they're still working. They're still getting their job done. Right. I mean, pondering things. How do you have a computer do that? How do you write software that would do that? It's one thing to have some artificial intelligence bot search for this and that and keywords in a sentence, and to do this and a list of instructions on what to do. But it's a whole nother thing to be a human, to have consciousness. And that example that I just gave right there, that's just one unique individual, right? You take consciousness into another direction, which is the next person in line standing left to right, totally different person, totally different personality, totally different soul, totally different emotions, totally different likes and dislikes. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they negative? Are they positive? Do they have empathy or not? Right? This is what consciousness is. And that's why it is so tough to understand and to measure. You're thinking about where to go on vacation. And you're thinking to yourself why you like, say, Hawaii. And then you have to, as you're having these thoughts, you have to mumble about this while being injected with Novocaine from your dentist. And as he's approaching you with that needle and he's sticking that in your mouth, you've got your fear of needles, and you know you're going to feel that thing poke in, and you've got to deal with that. And then you have to think, oh man, how long am I going to be numb today? Because I want to enjoy dinner tonight. I want to be able to taste the food. How long is that going to go on? And your dentist, and you don't want to talk to him with the mumbling mouth, but he's talking to you and you're talking back. And, that is being human with consciousness. How do you write that into a computer? So will there be software written? It would be monstrous. How would you write code about this? Now, I would say that you can't. And maybe that there is a natural, simplistic line of code that throws all of these options into play. That you could get a computer to think about going on vacation and fear of needles, right? And being numb and what you're going to have for dinner and what it's like to mumble with your dentist while sitting in a chair and the smell of the dentist office that bothers you. Right. And the assistant over here that you don't like, how do you write that into code? How do you write that into code? You can't. Will math? No, I will say this. What math will make this happen. I mean, what math right now? It's impossible. And it may never happen. Because consciousness probably exists outside of the body, outside of the physical, outside of those protons and particles and atoms and molecules. Now, what is more remarkable? What is more remarkable is that I, with my very inefficient brain and mind, can talk about this. Right now with you. That's the insane part. Right? I'm not out there hunting for food like an animal, trying to survive the cold of the night. And that is my world. That is my reality. My reality is this. And this is what my consciousness can see. It can feel. And I can think. And I can talk to you about this. And that is remarkable. And so can the world of science wonder about the same things? Right? If I can do this, if I can think about UFOs and aliens and ET contact and lost history and who built the Great Pyramid, if I can do all of that, wonder about Bigfoot, if I can do all of that, right? If I have that ability to imagine, right? To think, to build my knowledge base, to build my knowledge limit, my fundamental growth. If I can do all of that, so can the world of science. Which is why, in the end, those brainiacs who deny it, who won't talk about it, will probably conclude that consciousness does indeed exist outside of our bodies. That consciousness is magic. It's spiritual. It is real. And it is forever. I'm going to take a break right here. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, consciousness.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back.
Check out Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv, where you can get access to over 6,000 videos, movies, TV series, exclusive documentaries like the Black Knight Satellite. You can do it all for just $7.77 per month or $77 per year after the 3-day trial, which is also totally free to check out. It's all simple to do. Billy Carson is the best. It's simple. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's the number 4BK. I will be hosting and emceeing the Conscious Life Expo this February 10th through the 13th at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. 200 speakers, including Linda Moulton Howe, Bashar, Deborah King, George Norrie, Daniel Sheehan, Scott Walter Johnstone, and David Wolf. Over 200 vendors, special events. This is the biggest event of its kind on planet Earth. You've got to come and hang out with all of us. Tickets and info at ConsciousLifeExpo.com. The links are below. On Saturday, April 1st, that's right, April Fool's Day, 2023, I will be hosting the Parapod Festival at the Hyatt Regency right here in Valencia, California. It's a live one-day podcast awards. It's a film festival. It's a full-on media event. We're going to have sky watching. There's going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Linda Moulton Howe. Right now, you can submit your podcast, your film, your TV series, any of your paranormal media for consideration. You can do all of that on the links below. For info and tickets, go to parapodfilmfest.com. That's parapodfilmfest.com. April 7th through the 14th, 2023, I'll be hosting and presenting on the Hidden Secrets Seminar at Sea Cruise. From Los Angeles to the Mexican Riviera on the Navigator of the Seas. That's right, up top, a giant water slide. You've got to check out the Navigator of the Seas. It's amazing. We've got Scott Walter, Adam Apollo, Nick Pope, Brad Olson, Vivian Chauvet, Jason Shirka, Robert Grant, Ruben Langdon, and another 12 amazing speakers and presenters. It's all simple to do. Just visit divinetravels.com/Hidden Secrets 2023. You know you want to go on a cruise with me. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight we're talking about consciousness. What is consciousness? The point where I left off, which is that the world of science in the end, and I really mean this, they're going to find out that and conclude that consciousness does exist outside of the body, that it is magic. And spiritual is the right word, that it's real and it is forever. You see, right now, our universe is just 13.8 billion years old. Our solar system, our sun, our planet Earth, is about a third of that. 4.5 billion years old. The particles that make up everything around us, atoms, molecules, and their protons, they are present in all that there is. Right? There's no other way to look at it, is there? That's it. The proton until very recently has been considered to last like forever. Now, if consciousness lasts forever, protons last forever, right? Forever is a long time for sure. 13.8 billion years also seems like a long time. Now, if we take a look into the future, and I'm talking about way, right? Way into the future. 13.8 billion years will just be a fraction of what we can understand. Let me explain it like this. Red dwarf is a basic classification that is given to the majority of stars that make up the universe. And it is theorized that they will last for trillions of years. It's a big number. It's a hard number to wrap your mind around. And once you understand and absorb how big a trillion is, then think about a trillion years. Because we can only look at our universe, right? 13.8 billion years. And we think that's a long time. A red dwarf star lasting for trillions of years, right? Just cruising along, happy, right? And they can do this because of their low mass and slow burning of their hydrogen fusion engines. Yeah, they just hang out. They're slow burners. They just hang out for trillions and trillions of years. So if that's the case, let's stop and examine that for a second. A trillion years, this much, right? A trillion years. How much is 13.8 billion years if that's a trillion years? It's like a single cell of skin on this hand. That's your 13.8 trillion years right there. Just a skin cell. Right? And we think that is a long time. Our sun, this skin cell, right there. Our sun will be a small lump of black coal in about 5 billion years. That's right. What about our planet? Same thing. It'll be toast. It's going to be roasted a few times over, by the way. So, if our sun is going to last, 15 billion years, the universe is 13.8 billion years old. And we've been around for 5 billion years, right? That's it. So our sun is expected to live at the longest 15 billion years, probably 10 billion years. And if we're talking about 1 trillion years that a red dwarf is going to exist out there, what about us? Just a skin cell. And we are going to come and go. You get halfway through that 1 trillion years, nobody's going to remember we were here, right? But don't worry. Don't worry. We'll have left Earth long before disaster strikes. If we don't blow ourselves up first, or we don't survive an alien invasion or two. But we're going to be out of here. We're going to be gone. That's it. But just absorb what I've just said. Our sun has a lifespan between 10 and 15 billion years. That's it. Nothing more. It's not going to last any longer. The red dwarfs, trillions of years. How can we change it? We can't. That's it. Our sun's going to go through its changes. It's going to go from a hydrogen core to a helium core, and it's going to expand. When it expands, we're going to be gone, and that's it. I mean, Earth, when it expands out and the gravity changes, it becomes less mass and more mass, and our orbits are going to change, and we're going to move out, and Mars is going to move out, and Venus, and what's going to survive? Mercury's going to be toast. They're going to be absorbed right away. But even if the sun doesn't expand out and touch Earth, the heat that is going to be generated here on Earth, it's going to be thousands of degrees, and our atmosphere is going to be blasted away, and the oceans are going to evaporate, and what's left of Earth is just going to be lava. Right? We're just going to have molten rock over the surface of the Earth, but we're going to be gone by then. We're going to be gone, right? But those protons that I was talking about, yes, long thought to be immortal, trillions of years. But that probably isn't the case. Right now, we are just starting to understand what dark energy is. And remember, lifting up our fundamental limits of knowledge and what we can understand, pushing it up, pushing it up, pushing it up. So just recently, we're starting to learn this, right? And it's called dark because it doesn't emit any light. That's why we call it dark energy, but we just don't have another word for it. But we do know that something is pushing and expanding the universe apart. And that, it's a gravitational force moving everything in all directions outward. But then we have other forms of gravity that pull and bind things together. Protons. One or more protons are present in the nucleus of every atom. Everywhere. That's it. They provide the attractive force which binds the atomic electrons. Everything in the universe Now you have to ask yourself as we start to learn what dark energy is and dark matter and protons and gravity. Where does the energy come from? How is it possible that a proton can keep things glued together forever? Right? You've got to eat. You've got to get energy from somewhere. And more importantly, how long can it last? How long can you last in the desert without water? How long can you last without food? You need energy, and you need to have stuff come in to put out that gas in your car. Right? Right now, our only form of time, the only thing that we can understand is the start of the formation of our universe. 13.8 billion years. That's all we don't have any concept. When we get into trillions of years in the future and all of the zeros, all of the digits that are involved with that, we don't have we cannot wrap our mind around that kind of time. So far into the future that our sun, our solar system, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone. That's it. Now, so far, over the last 13.8 billion years, protons have held up pretty well. And again, once thought to last forever. But what if in the far, far distant future, trillions of years from now, that protons lose their ability to bind things together? What if? That's where science is going today. That's what consciousness does, that we are able to imagine and ask these questions. How is it possible that we can do this? How is it possible that I can talk about this? Now, our sun, long since becoming a lump of blackness trillions of years before, if protons lose their ability to bind things together, our sun, it's going to be smaller than Earth, and it's just going to be a black mass just floating in space. That's it. No energy, no nothing. You know, and because of its mass still has gravity. So maybe if a couple of planets are still hanging out, if Earth survived all of that madness, maybe Earth is still attracted to our black lump of coal that was once our glowing sun. Yeah, that's possible. But trillions of years in the future, if protons lose their ability to bind things together, our previous glowing sun, which is now a black lump of coal, just becomes cosmic dust. When everything that was ever created dissolves into particles of nothing, floating in the vastness of space. Now, it seems empty. There's nothing there. There's nothing to light up space. There are no stars. Stars have been gone for a trillion years. That's it. It's all over. What's left? What is left? The lone little, electron just floating through space, a survivor, right? If you're lucky enough, right, to see that, just floating, what would be left? Consciousness. That's right. Floating consciousness. Consciousness that contains all of our memories, all of our emotions, our imaginations, our eternal souls, just floating around, still thinking. That's right, still pondering. And then it happens, right? Our souls out there, our consciousness floating through space, searching for that lone particle zipping around so we can gobble them up, because the soul's got to eat, right? Need energy. See, I've put it all together. But then, trillions of years in the future, after traveling through the emptiness of it all, a new universe is born. When our venturing minds, floating in space, come across the right collection of gases, where gravity in this locality of space wants to do something, and life is created once again. Stars are formed with new planets orbiting them. Galaxies collect, spiral, and our consciousness builds a new home. When you think about who created the universe, right? Who was the all-knowing intelligence at the start of it all? Who put this together? Was it divine, or was it us? Right? There has to be something magical driving this. DNA, us, birds. It's just too divine. Life is created once again, and when those stars form, and you have rings of dust around those stars, and gravity starts to coalesce the lumps of cosmic dust together and into a ball, and it becomes a planet, right? Water on comets is bombarded into the planets, and the heat of the sun, and the next thing you know, you've got amino acids that are distributed throughout the universe, just like this planet. Life starts again. That's how it is. Yes, and one day in the far distant future, there will be a scientist who will have all of the answers and know that consciousness is us, all of us, forever, and that we are the creator of everything. And that universe, trillions and trillions and trillions of years in the future, that new universe that is created will also one day dissolve into nothingness, the cycle of life, right? Protons and electrons and neutrons and quarks and gold and carbon and hydrogen created once again, right? Water and oxygen and fish. It's the cycle of life. And those protons will cease to have the ability to bind, and everything will come apart. And that universe, too, will dissolve into nothingness. But it's just going to be another day in the life of creation. For consciousness does indeed exist outside of physical science. There you go. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. And I hope that answered your questions about what is consciousness. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.